This is the Down to Earth podcast documentary, The Bloods and the Crips, The American Nightmare. In this episode, we detail the leader of the Bloods, Sylvester Scott, aka Puddin, born 1954, September 13th. Grew up in California. His family first resided in the West Side Watts neighborhood. 1969, there was a gang called the Piru Street Boys. That same neighborhood that Puddin's family moved into in 1972. And then that same year was the creation of the Bloods. It was an alliance from other neighborhoods, a revolt against the big growing gang, the Crips. Raymond Washington beat up one of Puddin's friends, and it's said that he got assaulted himself, and this was the result of them going against the Crips, because the Crips was a big gang, still is a big gang, but back then the Piru Street Boys was limited, and they had to transform in 72 officially to the Bloods Alliance against the Crips, headed by Puddin. Puddin became ruthless over time against his rivals. He was very feared by the Crips. Anyone who mentioned his name, they were like, looking out. He was good with the weapon, the guns. He always hit his target. That's what was mentioned. But the Bloods was a revolt against the Crips, Raymond Washington, and Tookie. Even Tookie felt the wrath of Puddin. Tookie got shot by Puddin, right? That is the other leader of the Crips. Later on, his organization got into drug trafficking, robbery, and many assaults and many murders. That's what the Bloods was known for. The red symbolizes their nation, their gang. The revolt, like I mentioned, against the Crips that wear blue. Puddin was charged with rape and was incarcerated for some time in his stint of being this gang leader. Down the line through the years, through the 80s, they were going through the wars. He was well feared a lot in the streets. He's one reason the Bloods are what they are today. He was very organized with his organization, made a lot of money off of illegal drugs. He was a kingpin before many could call themselves a kingpin. It seems to me that the Bloods were a little bit more organized than the Crips. The Bloods had more of a leadership structure. There wasn't too much, chiefs. There was limited chiefs around those times, but later on, the Bloods kept growing. There was many other sets, about 15. Puddin was charged with a variety of cases, Los Angeles, one including rape of a 17-year-old girl and other offenses. But during the time, 1991, he was involved in a federal case involving some corrupt cops that was stealing money from the drugs that was being sold in the streets from drug dealers like himself. So he testified basically against them with other famous individual, Rick Ross, the real Rick Ross, a big drug kingpin known from California. Yes, the real Rick Ross. So Puddin was also a witness for the prosecution against these dirty cops. Later on, through time, he had a relationship with a famous singer from California on the Death Row Records label. Famous label what Snoop Dogg was on and Dr. Dre was on and Tupac. Her name was Jewel. In this relationship, it was not really, a good, healthy relationship. They always had some type of fights going on. He would abuse her, and that led to her shooting him in the chest. Yes, he got shot in the chest from this lady, and he was never the same. After surviving that shooting, ruled as an accident, throughout the years, he was basically trying to survive because a lot of his enemies were coming after him. 2006, he was murdered in Gardenia, California. Yup, shot to death. This is kind of like crazy because he was the leader of the Bloods. A lot of the time it's your own people, but that's how his life ended, shot in Gardenia, California. There was rumors that it was the shooting that happened to him earlier by the lady Jewel that made him pass away, but that's just a rumor. He did not die like that. He was murdered, shot cold blood in the streets. The same lifestyle he lived by the gun, you die by the gun.